Yes, he did.
Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Donnybrook. Lots to talk about on this edition, so let's get to the introductions and then into the heart of the discussion. Let's start with Wendy Wiese from the Big 550 KTRS, Bill McClellan from the Post-Dispatch, Ray Hartmann, founder of the Riverfront Times and now on Substack, and from the St. Louis American, Alvin Reid. Well, Ray, it was not a good week. On Saturday, of course, a horrific attack on Israel by the terrorist group Hamas. Thousands dead and kidnapped. Afterward, St. Louis Congresswoman Cori issued a statement, and she was mournful about the loss of life, and she asked for peace and no violence. But at the same time, she also seemed to place more responsibility on the tragic events of the weekend on Israel than on Hamas, the terrorist organization. She did say that she was calling for an end to U.S. support for the Israeli military's occupation and apartheid of the area. Gaza. And so I'm asking you, overall, did she jump the shark, and do you think that there are others who are probably going to throw their hat in the ring and challenge her from the Democratic side?
I hope so. I think it was a horrible statement. I will say this, that there were horrible statements on the other side, too. We spend much time on, but Josh Hawley decided this was a time to double down on being against aid for Ukraine, and the others just, it showed that our delegation in general isn't up to this moment, really. And the Post had a good editorial to that effect. I personally think, Cori Bush, I was pretty positive about her when she started. I think she represents herself, but she does, but not the district very well. I would love to see Carla May, who's running for states, who's a terrific state senator, who along with Wesley Bell are running against Lucas Kunce for Senate. They have, I think, very little chance of getting the nomination. Either one of them, but my choice would be Carla, should shift from running a losing race to Senate, which is statewide, to what I think could be a very winning race for the 1st Congressional District. So I'd like to see Carla or Wesley Bell, but particularly I think Carla run against her.
Well, as a 1st Congressional person who has never liked Cori Bush, I mean, I admire her in certain ways, but she's never seemed to me like a serious person. I would like to see Wesley Bell leap in, although when Wesley was on Next Up, 3 days before he announced he was running for Senate, he said, how about the future? He said, oh, no, I'm staying in my lane. So I don't know if he's going to now veer off from that lane to this, but I think somebody should challenge Cori Bush.
Well, they're always putting new lanes on highways. He didn't know there'd be a new entrance ramp, and I'd get on that entrance ramp if I was him, because I think Wesley Bell, because of the name recognition, I think because of the situation that Cori Bush created for herself, I think he could have, in 24 hours, he'd have $1 million. And I think in a week, he'd have $5 million. And I think by the time we came around to the election, he would be the clear favorite to win. I just think back to, when you want to go back to 9/11, or even I wrote about this back at my birthday time, when the situation happened in Germany with the Jewish athletes, and everything kind of gets put on hold because terrorism is terrorism is terrorism. And you just cannot make any kind of excuse or try to wish it away, or I'm going to explain why they did this. No, there is no explanation for it. And to spin it that way is to be, one, naive. I think it's to be dangerously naive. And then two, it doesn't say that, it doesn't say it's not very, very complicated and it's gone back a few hundred years. But also, you know, I would ask Cori Bush, say, Cori Bush, you know, when did, you know, all this begin? And I doubt she could say, like, well, actually it was after World War I because they reneged on promises to, you know, that part of the world because they helped in World War I and said, we're going to give you this, and we didn't give them anything. You know, I doubt she even knows that. And so it's one of those things where if you don't know the history, then just don't say anything.
Right. And I mean, it predates the Ottoman Empire. You know, so yeah, in that moment, you know, as we've been saying all week, this isn't even terrorism. This is barbarism. This is pure barbarism. So if you don't measure your words, if you are a representative of the United States government and the citizens of the 1st Congressional District of the city of St. Louis, if you don't have more discipline than that, if there's not a greater sense of professionalism or responsibility or patriotism, then, as you said, just keep quiet.
And real quick, there have been several polls that have come out already, and most Black Americans said our moral obligation is to stand with Israel. So she's kind of
well, that whole when the affiliation with the squad seems to be paramount to her.
Hang on a moment. You know, I'm no defender of Cori Bush on almost any issue, and I'm not even sure I'm praising her comments here. But in the scheme of things right now, often when these horrible events happen, whether it's 9/11 or some other time, we sometimes go into these. The reaction is something we later regret. And I think that if she's saying, don't forget the Palestinian innocent life, and we do know that about 1,000 Palestinians have died in the past week, about 140 or so children, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. I think that if we cherish human life, we should be concerned for that life as well.
That's not what she was doing. She was more pointing fingers.
Blaming.
And yeah, she wasn't being thoughtful and like Tom Friedman talking about, you know, let's not rush into this. She was
blaming Israel.
Yeah.
I mean, let me respect. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, no one. I'm certainly not taking lightly Palestinian life, nor that there are many there's a just cause here that is a source of reasonable debate, for sure. And just to be clear, there is raging debate within Israel about Bibi Netanyahu, who probably is on the way out because of this. So this isn't like everybody's on every same page. But what she said was cutting off aid to Israel and really, you know, was not the appropriate time. Right. Of course, and to your point, Tom Friedman wrote a great column in the New York Times saying that the whole overreaction by going into Gaza is what Hamas wants. So it's not like that isn't such. There's nuance to this, but she wasn't engaging in the nuance.
Well, she did say she was against violence.
Well, we all are.
Yeah.
Right, but that whole blaming Israel for its anti-apartheid government that's something else again.
Bill McClellan, I want to ask you about St. Charles County, where the county executive there just appointed a conservative, Buddy Hardin, to the St. Charles City County Library. He said he was under pressure to put a conservative there because there were people in the county who, as you know, in the past year or so, were concerned about the dress of the employees and books that were on the shelves that they thought were inappropriate. I'm thinking, and I like Steve Ellman a lot, I do, always have, but on this issue, I think when you're appointing someone to the library board, it's not good to have someone who hasn't had a library card in decades, by his own admission. Don't we want some expertise, someone who might be knowledgeable about library affairs or books as opposed to someone who just passes the conservative litmus test?
No, I think that what Ellman did is the smart thing. We have library professionals who can run the library. The library board in normal times doesn't do a whole lot, and this has just become such a cultural war thing that if you nominate a conservative, you know, a Republican, who, it doesn't matter that he doesn't have a library card or doesn't, even read books. You just want to
Really?
quiet. Yes.
Do you really believe that?
Yes, I do. You just want to quiet things down and let the professional librarians run the library.
Right, because I think growing up, you know, back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, I don't think Jerry Rubin and H. Rap Brown were on the Kirkwood Library Board. They were probably conservative people, but they weren't burning books and telling you what you can and can't read. And so as long as this gentleman does not jump into the, you know, oh, that book has this in it, and no one can read it. As long as he's not that, I don't have a problem.
It's the crowd that you want to keep quiet.
This isn't Greenwich Village. This is St. Charles County. So he is going to do in Rome what they need for him to do in Rome.
The peasants with pitchforks, with all due respect, are showing up at the library meetings because they think the board is too liberal.
Actually,
So
they're,
now,
they're taxpayers, Charlie. Peasants. Come on.
These meetings aren't going to become more peaceful or reasonable now.
You don't know that.
The idea is that they will, Charlie. If these people with the pitchforks think that, you know, it's the librarians and the liberals are doing this and that, then they show up at the meetings. You want things to be back down where nobody goes to the library
maybe
board
they'll be
meeting.
bringing the voice of the citizens to the board and challenging more clothing and books.
Charlie,
I don't think that's what Steve Ellman has in mind. I think he's very, very smart.
Quiet things down.
Yeah, exactly.
Ellman doesn't need me supporting him, but I will, because he had five of the 9 appointments, and we do not have in St. Charles. We do not have a school board that is dominated by 5 anti-free speech people, crazies and stuff. He put one person on there that I wouldn't love, but I'm not as, you know, he has, just like talking about Cori Bush, not listening to her constituents.
Exactly.
He's got to listen to his constituents, and to his credit, Steve Ellman has not created some terrible school board with his 5 appointments that is going to destroy free speech and stuff. So I think you've got to cut him a little slack. You can't question every single one of his appointments. And I think on balance, Steve Ellman, and I think we all agree on this, represents what Republicans used to be and ought to be. He's a conservative more than a moderate, but he's not. He's a fair-minded person.
So what value added does a guy who hasn't had a library card in decades bring to the library board?
Who cares?
We want to let the professionals run it, Charlie, not the
care
board.
if he had a library card.
Well, then if that's the case, then keep the liberals on it, because that's what they're doing.
Do you have a library card right now?
I sure do.
Okay, right now.
2 systems.
Right now, I don't have a library card, and I haven't had a
Well, I
library
wouldn't
card.
put you on the board either, Alvin.
No, but I'm saying that's just because I haven't gone down there and like redone my library card. But it doesn't mean I couldn't be on the library board.
I don't know. Reasonable people might disagree.
Well,
All right.
Look at the result.
Yeah.
I think actually your mom was on the board.
Yes,
wasn't she?
right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
so we have
What are you
Reid
trying to say?
representation.
Right. Nepotism, she'll get me a library.
Wendy, I want to ask you about Hancock High. They're eschewing grades now. They're going to rate people on other things like hard work and intentions. What do you think?
Well, are you asking the peasants with the pitchforks how our...
No, you're royalty, as you know.
Oh, wow.
As you tell us.
Wow. That's right, as I inform you weekly. No, I'm like everybody else. When I hear these kinds of things, I just absolutely shudder. I think it's repellent. I mean, the idea is repellent to people of our generation, most people of our generation. However, what we're doing isn't working. In a lot of these places, it's not working. And in this particular, at Hancock High, the disciplinary actions have been cut in half. The tardiness is down apparently 60%. Instead of traditional discipline, methods of discipline, they have something called restorative, reflective, something or other, where you can actually take part in the maintenance department. You can sweep the school or work to clear your account, if you will, instead of getting suspended. So I don't have a problem with some of these more creative. Let's see how they work before we just dismiss them out of hand.
Sorry, Wendy, but I have to agree with you.
Oh, wow.
That's what you do.
It's a tough night.
Because I'm more and more finding myself talking about local control of schools. And I don't know what's best for Hancock High School. or the Hancock School District, because I'm not there. And even if I was there, I probably wouldn't know. But the fact is, I think you got to defer to local school officials about what works best for their district.
Okay.
Now, I think you have to.
The son of the
I agree,
teacher.
no, I agree with you. But in this case, I'm not debating that. What I'm saying is, if I take the school out, take the district out, take that all out, I still think that there should be some measure of testing. Now, I could say that Hancock has some of the most dedicated, student-centric individuals. One of mine is a good friend. Hi, Paul. But I know that they really, really care about the kids in the Hancock, Place School District. But I am one that I think there should be a testing standard. I think there should be some grades. And even if it was akin to maybe pass fail or something, but I
Alvin,
think you need to be graded, because but I think you're teaching a lesson that you're never going to be graded once you're out of school. And oh yeah, you're going to be graded. It's not A through F, but you are going to be graded.
But the published report on this in the Post-Dispatch said that some of the students were stigmatized by the low grades.
Yes, and that's been going on since grades were invented. I mean, I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but at the same time, okay, there is a such thing as do better, try harder.
But I think if you're a child maybe who has underperformed, then you go into every school year and you're dreading the school year. And I think that sense of dread probably just increases. It doesn't decrease over the course of the year. Not all of them, but some of them.
Well, we weren't smarter, but were we stronger? Or is it the social media?
What
is the difference? Why?
I'm someone who was stigmatized. I flunked out of college. I mean, so there are grades, and I was stigmatized by getting a lot of F's and D's, but I still think you need some measuring stick of how kids are doing, other than, well, he seems to enjoy it.
I am so disappointed in my fellow founder. I mean, I graduated in the half of the class that made the top half possible, and I thought for sure somebody needs to throw down for low grades.
We're moving along. We're moving along. Bill, and then Ray. Okay. Bill, I want to just in order of, not necessarily in order of importance.
No, it's more like the least academic.
Here's what we're going to do. Bill, a story in, I guess, the Riverfront Times about a cop in the city whose name is Roger Murhpey. He's now retired. He was put on the circuit attorney's exclusion list, which was a list of about 30 or so officers that wasn't public, wasn't published, and there was no reason given why these officers were on it. But the circuit attorney refused to take their cases because they had behavior which the circuit attorney concluded undermined their credibility. So this guy, according to the report, this guy refused to testify in any cases, even murder cases, like 9 of them, after the circuit attorney's office said, okay, you're on the exclusion list, we don't trust you, but please come back and testify on these. So he ended up streaming movies and watching movies at his desk, and he was demoted from, I think, homicide back to the beat patrol. What are your thoughts here?
I thought it was the strangest story I've ever read about the police. A homicide detective, and he was put on the list because of social media, talking about Lion Lida and Kimmy G, and things that you think, oh, why would you be so juvenile to go on social media and lambaste people? But refusing to testify in murder cases and kind of boasting about how people got away with murder that should be doing life without parole. And I thought, the good news is he's gone. I thought it was a betrayal to the citizens, a betrayal to his brother and sister cops. So he's gone. He and Kim Gardner are both gone. That's a good thing. And secondly, he was talking, the other good thing is that he was a little disappointed that more officers who didn't like Kim Gardner didn't join his little protest. And he said, he can understand it because they have families and tuition and medical bills, where it was just him and his wife. And she said, go for it. And I thought, I'm just glad he's off the department.
Can I say, if I might jump in?
Yeah.
He didn't testify because he didn't like Kim Gardner. He testified because he was on an exclusion list.
He didn't testify because he didn't like Kim Gardner.
His career was ruined by Kim Gardner. He was cleared by his own department. If she wanted to, she could have subpoenaed him and put him on the stand that way. But for some reason, she didn't do that.
Oh, well, because you don't want your main witness to be a hostile detective, a hostile witness. And he said that if I get called, I'm not going to say anything. And one of the prosecutors who tried to call him was a friend of mine, Morley Swingle, said, you know, we need you on this. And I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, he put his own ego and his whatever attitude.
Well, I'm sorry, but so did Kim Gardner.
No, wait a minute. He put his ego.
She put him on the exclusion list.
Excuse me.
She said that his behavior meant that he had no credibility. So then why did you want him on the stand?
Why would you want him to testify?
Okay, first of all, let's be clear about that. Well, first of all, the exclusion list, many of those people were on there because they left racist texts and so forth, and the Scott Rosenblums of the world were just dying to have them as witnesses. So it's not all a cut and dry. But let me be clear. In this particular, I don't know.
When he called Kim Gardner Kimmy G and he called a drug dealer a thug.
It doesn't matter what she did. The fact is he had an oath to the people of this community to do his job, whatever he thought, whatever you want to cast Kim Gardner in this role in, he still owed it to the citizens of this community to do his best to lock up dangerous people.
You know, I was no fan of Kim Gardner. I wrote stories against her. I was happy to see her go, but I just don't think that a homicide detective should be boasting that he sabotaged these cases.
The 9 families. Yes. Okay, let's take all of it out there.
Right.
Exclusionary list, all that. Exactly. The 9 families. Okay, buddy. Right. You're going to need somebody to come down and testify when I found you on the street and beat your tail. Because if I'm out there and I'm a member of one of these families, I said, you're going to be that cavalier? That guy's out on the street right now that murdered my whoever, and you're going to be that cavalier about it? Oh, it's unbelievable.
And a matter of fact, he said that there was one case he would testify in because it was a police family. So you're going to help out this case because it's a police family, but
it's horrible.
I'm suing him. Don't forget, I'm suing the city. I'm suing the state.
He was cleared by the police department.
I don't care what he was.
And she dragged her heels. She never completed the investigation.
So in other words,
he had this investigation hanging over his head forever. So she's going to she was going to nursing school when she should have been completing the investigation.
So in other words, Charlie, real quick. So there is an excuse. All right, let's take Kim Gardner out of it. Take him out. You're saying
can't take Kim Gardner out.
No.
Yes, you can.
No, what you're saying is
she put him on the exclusion list.
Listen. You're saying that there is a reason for letting a murderer go free.
Why did Kim Gardner not take his cases?
Yes or no?
Well, I'll answer with a question.
She did take his cases, Charlie. I mean, like Larry Keck, who was murdered. Murphy was the lead detective in that, and Kim Gardner took the case, and Murphy said, I'm not going to testify. And Keck, who was a glazier, you know, windows, took a window out of my house when I had to get a sofa in, and was beat to death by this guy. And Kim Gardner called Murphy to testify, but he said, I'm not going to do it.
Then she should have taken him off the exclusion list.
If his testimony, Charlie, I don't like Kim Gardner at all. But there's no reason a police officer should boast about sabotaging.
I agree. It's not ideal, and the whole thing stunk.
What if one of these murderers murders somebody else? Whose head is that on? That police officers? Or will you sleep well saying like, oh, man, somebody's dead that wouldn't be dead if that guy wasn't out on the street.
But does him casting aspersions on social media? Okay,
we got to move along to the final topic of the night. The guaranteed basic income is coming to St. Louis. You can go to the city's website and learn more about it, I think, at the treasurer's office, and then there'll be 1 week to apply for it, Ray.
Right.
The 23rd of October through November the 1st. 540 people are going to be chosen. They'll get $500 a month for 18 months. They have to have a kid in the St. Louis Public Schools.
Or charter.
Or a charter. Can't be in a Catholic school, can't be childless, whatever.
Good for Mayor Tashara Jones. It's a good program. I wrote about it last November when she announced it. I interviewed Michael Tubbs, who's the mayor of Stockton nationally, who sort of launched this as a national initiative. As he says, cash solves lack of cash. It is a great, it's had good results in other places. I think the idea of cash for those among us that need it the most is a very positive thing. Good for Tashara Jones for doing it.
What if the money's used for tattoos, beers, cigarettes,
you know what?
lottery tickets, gambling?
Have enough respect for people. There's no reason to assume somebody's poor that they're not going to use the money as well as anybody else. There's all kinds of credits given.
It won't be used for firearms?
Andrew Yang ran a presidential campaign.
I think it's a good concept
on this, that someday and someday soon there might not be enough jobs to go around. Basic income is something we have to think about. I mean, I agree. I don't
There are a lot of help wanted signs out there.
Well, I'm just I'm trying to figure out how to get this $500.
It's for some of the most needy among us.
And you notice you have to have
their ability
a photo ID to get it. Did you notice that? All of a sudden, photo IDs are required.
Okay.
Let's go to the mailbag and see what the viewers had to say about last week's show. Please pass along my thanks to the panelists for talking about the recent turmoil at KDHX. I encourage them to continue the discussion about the continuing mismanagement by the KDHX Board of Directors and others in leadership positions. Thank you, Douglas Burge of Clifton Heights, for writing. And we heard from Marion Miller of St. Louis, who wrote, as an older adult who owned her own property until this past November, I agree with Sarah Fensky. The proposed residential property tax freeze for seniors should be means tested. I believe Charlie Brennan should apologize to all teachers. During tonight's show, the panel was discussing a certain teacher's non-school activities when Charlie said, and this is a good teacher, and we have so few good teachers. Thank you, Dennis Oge of South County, for sharing your opinion. You can share yours by writing 9PBS 63108. Don't forget those emails. Donnybrook at 9pbs.org. We love those posts on X. Use hashtag DonnybrookSTL. Call the 9 line at 314-512-9094 and listen to us on your favorite podcast source, Apple, Spotify, TuneIn, and Google Play. Well, I give this program A+. We're still grading here. Thank you very much. You're A++ for watching. We'll see you next week.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.